Welcome to ReReview, where we watch movies from our past with a perspective from today. Your hosts are Matt, Bobby, and Austin, and we love the films from our youth, so we're taking a look back to see if they still hold up. On this episode, we're discussing Alien. It was released in 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, stars Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, and John Hurt. This is a sort of a very well-known franchise, but this is about a mining team doing things they shouldn't do over and over and over and over. Now, this is a fair warning. We're spoiling a 45-year-old movie. So if you haven't seen it, we will be revealing key plot points. Man, that 45 hurts. I'm not going to lie. I feel like when I say 45, we should be talking about Gone with the Wind, right? Or just something something that's not Alien. Good Lord.
See, now so fast. I'm going through those memes that have been popping up online, like where it like compares like, you know, we're closer to like, we're about as close to like, you know, 1970 as like 1970 was to like 1920 or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
There's like, no.
God. Whenever I see any of those, I just try to get by it as quickly as I can, not see it and pretend like it doesn't exist.
Well, whatever. Aging is fun. We all love it. And you know what we also love? A matte looking space image that's flat and there's no activity on it, as this movie opens with a lot of silence.
They had to slowly fade in each letter because it was like a neat little.
But like that was fine. It was just the sense of space. Like, I don't know, maybe in my mind, I thought that this was more dread-inducing of a beginning. I don't know, maybe if it was like a later movie that I had seen. But it was like, it was very quiet. It was very, you know, I don't know. Even compared to like the Predator opening where it has the da-da-da-da, you know, it has a very like specific tone to it. This one was, I don't know, like, especially because it's a credit sequence. Like, I feel like if you're in the right mode, you could definitely fall asleep at the beginning, considering it's a horror movie.
Well, It seemed like it was more like they were just exploring space, and it kind of like we learned with them that there was something nefarious going on that they didn't know until about halfway through.
Well, they really didn't know, and they made a lot of decisions around that lack of knowledge and or I don't know, too much knowledge at some particular parts. I mean, what I wanted to, I think, ask you both, because I feel like you'll have a better idea than I do. It was very, at least today, we use the word tropes for a lot of things. And there was just a lot of the, you said horror movie, right? Just kind of don't go in that door. It felt like everything was all about that. How much was this stealing from prior stuff to 1979, or is it more so that this was really the marker that everyone built from? Because it was very easy to watch this movie and feel the references, the set design, the way things were done in other movies that came well after it.
Well, if you look at the timeline, we're looking at 1979. There's another movie that came out 4 years before, Jaws, 1975. So I've heard this movie referred to as Jaws in space. So I think there are some similarities there.
Mm-hmm. Matt, do you agree? I can't recall Jaws well enough. I feel like Jaws was a USA movie for me. As was
this one probably was too. I mean, I can see some of the similarities. I kind of feel like this one had the reverse problem of Jaws. Whereas like with Jaws, they very much were hindered by the breaking down of Bruce, the shark. And so you never really saw the shark until the very end. This one, I kind of wish I didn't see the alien nearly as much as we did.
I thought the same thing. As like during the face hugger scene, I thought, wow, like when that alien came out, I'm like, wow, this thing's like in the light and it's not moving and you could see it real well. And it was neat looking, but I was like, oh, cool puppet. It like slides along the table.
Oh, we'll get to that. We talked about like cryo technology, the idea of waking up 300 years later. Well, they're just using it for this manned mission to get minerals. And I think at some point we learned they were 10 months away from Earth, and they said they were halfway there. So really they were on like a 40-month trek out and 20 months out, 20 months back in after they get whatever mining minerals that they were supposed to get. Mm-hmm. It seems odd because the ship woke them up for this. Mother did, right? The Siri of 1979. Is that what Mother basically is? Did we land on that?
Right. So I have a question. Like Mother woke them up because there was a prior mission alert, right? Like where did that come from?
Because the robot is also there to promote the idea if they find extraterrestrial life. Wow. If they find aliens, that they're supposed to bring it back to Earth, right?
Right, but that was like set up before they left, right?
Yeah,
They
just
just
always
didn't
there.
know it.
No, they technically it was in their contract that, well, at least Ash implied that it was in their contract that they are legally required that if they ever had any indications of potential contact, that they had to investigate it, which they obviously didn't know a lot of stuff that was going to come later with the prequels that were made. There was implications that they would have known that there were already aliens out there. And so that would kind of imply that, okay, well, that's the reason why the stipulation was put there, but clearly that wasn't part of this when they made it. I think that technically it probably would have made more sense that, you know, they would have thought it was a rescue mission, which would have pulled them into it. Because, I mean, isn't there like a maritime law that says if you receive a distress signal, you have to, as a seafaring vessel, to like actually go and help? But with it being like, oh, well, received a signal, it might be aliens, like, seems like sort of a stretch.
Right.
Well, they all, and maybe you're right, because they all accepted sort of the, yes, we're going to go figure out what this is. And we have, you know, well, we'll talk about the characters next. We have people like Kane and Lambert. No, not Brett. Who else went with them on that trip? Whatever. They walked into a friggin' alien spaceship as if nothing was wrong with what they were doing, and get as close as to investigating eggs. Like, oh, no big deal. Just new bio life form. Cool. We're just here. We're doing that. They wake up. How do you feel about this cast of characters? You know, the first scene we have with them is they're eating finally after they all woke up and kind of being like, a couple people, was it Brett and Parker, saying, I need to get paid. And they just woke up and they're yelling about money. Right.
Yeah, they were mad about their bonuses. Or they're like their distribution of payment or something. Yeah.
Do you have anyone that stood out to you that you actually through the course of this movie enjoyed watching?
I mean, I liked a bunch of them, but the reason I liked them was from other things that they were in.
Oh no. Oh no.
You know, I liked Harry Dean Stanton because he was in Tremors. You know, I liked Ian Holm because he's in Fifth Element and Lord of the Rings, and I recognized Tom Skerritt from Top Gun. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm enjoying all this.
That's wow. Okay, Matt.
As far as the characters themselves, none of them were particularly interesting. And I think for me, it was because, like, again, going back to the conversation of tropes, they all just basically, like, the only one who seemed to be not a complete idiot was Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
She was trying to do her job as what I think she was warrant officer or something like that. And she's like, nope, they're contaminated. Not letting them in. Nope. And then Ash doing his whole betrayal thing because, you know, he was following directive, fourth directive or whatever.
Like, what were they supposed to be? Are they supposed to be like Appalachia type miners? Are they like scientists? Because like
only Ash was a scientist. All the rest of them were basically, they're just semi-drivers from my point of view.
Right. They're just laborers, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think that kind of plays because they certainly didn't seem like in the later movies, like they were supposed to be scientists, but they just seemed like laborers, basically like day laborers who are just there to do their job and leave.
Yeah, I would still like to believe that there is still some semblance of sanity in order to be put in charge of a giant ass ship that probably cost billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
does a mother drive the thing, or like how much control do they actually have?
Yeah, but then what do you need people for in the first place then? Yeah,
they could have used 1 billion ashes, right?
Yeah.
All the money to build that ship, and you tell me you couldn't build a whole bunch of robots?
Apparently not. See, now we're deconstructing we're creating plot holes and
well, just like some of the other sci-fis, it's like the humans are cheaper.
But I mean, I guess technically, if you look at his other movie, Blade Runner, I mean, that's what they used I can't remember what they called the androids.
The replicants.
The replicants. They use them for
mining.
For mining of wars. And
yeah.
So maybe that was kind of a tie-in to it. But I don't know. Like, I guess Ripley was probably the best one out of all of them. I feel like the sequels did a better job of establishing characters. I think that if we were watching Aliens, I could easily point out like quite a few characters that were unique and interesting from the get-go. Whereas this one, they were a little bit more plain.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm always big on it's sci-fi, right? So I think about the tech that we were looking at. Yeah. Is there an element where if we look into the future, because all of these sci-fi movies are about trying to predict what humanity might do, and I think the joke you made, Bobby, is pretend the opening crawl actually said, "Oh, it's 1996," something ridiculous because their idea of how the future was going to work just wasn't going to actually line up. Is there some sci-fi element, or was this the Star Wars argument too, where they're so far in the future that they use like old tech?
I spent an unhealthy amount of time in my head thinking about this very thing, like thinking like, there's like some kind of labor system. And so that's why they don't want the tech to be too much, because they don't want them like playing games or doing other things or like surfing the internet. So they like basically like gave them like a binary system so that all they could have access to was like work stuff and they couldn't mess around on the internet. So like I was thinking like, oh, like they retroed the tech just to like try to get like corporate efficiency out of their miners.
I half wondered if it would be safer somehow that way to have the old tech, but now I'm thinking about how much easier it would be to hack as a result. So I don't know.
I do think that that's always the danger of any sort of sci-fi, because I think Star Wars can get away with it because it's not, there's not humans from Earth in it. So you can make the argument, well, it's not like they had to predict cell phones or something because, it's not our world. And it does take place a long, long time ago, in a galaxy far away. Right. So it doesn't have to correlate to our progress. So you can kind of get away with it. But then you look at like Star Trek, where it is humans and it's the future, but it's distant, but it's not that distant. It's not like, 1,000 years in the future or whatever. It's still relatively, it's close. We're closer to Star Trek than we are to like, Roman times.
Right. Yes. But like in the original Star Trek series, they had like fax machine that would like print paper, like give them like paper readouts and stuff. And it's like,
hey, I need my paper, my MapQuest to get where I'm going.
Yep.
How's that for feeling a 45-year-old movie? This ship is amazing while also terrible at the same time. They literally fly into, they detach from the mineral mining ship, fly onto this planet they've never been before, get into the atmosphere with absolute ease. That made no sense to me. And they only had issues when they were, I don't know, less than a foot away from touching down, and seemed like they touched down safely. Then the ship just breaks to all hell. Like, why? Why did they do that?
No shock absorbers.
Yeah, zero shock absorbers.
Like no secure couplings on any of the wires or anything. It's just yeah. And the weird thing about it too is like, to me, kind of going into like just sci-fi in general, a ship like this, I don't think you wouldn't even build it on a planet. You'd probably build it in space with no intention of ever landing. Like ever, like it'd probably dock with space stations and stuff. So like the fact you even put like landing feet on it would be kind of like dumb. It's like there's no reason to do that because then you have to reinforce it, right? So to me, again, I think I made the comment about the little life vessel or whatever that they had at the end. It's like, why didn't they just use that? Like something like that seemed much more practical to use, kind of like the shuttles in Star Trek. We're probably going to reference Star Wars and Star Trek a lot in this podcast. Yeah, so
which makes sense.
I wonder if from like a storytelling point of view, they set it up to be primitive intentionally so that it's not like, it wasn't the kind of situation where they could have an alien on board and then someone can just walk over to the computer and be like, hey, computer, identify the alien with your computer. Oh, it's here. Okay, good. Thanks. Vaporize it. It was more like, no, it was like trying to fight a lion in a submarine. It's like none of the technology is going to help you.
See, now I want a lion in a submarine movie. Now that you said that. Lion Marine?
I'm just imagining someone in a sub like, don't pick up that lion. Make sure the lion doesn't get on board.
But you know,
It's just a kitten. Like it's not like it's going to grow into a lion.
Why'd you dock so close to the lion pen?
You know, like all those submarine movies. You know, it's like it's always right about to leak. It's always like they go too far down. Like something's always breaking. Like.
I mean, in the sense of these movies, I mean, to be fair, so the breaking when it lands, they needed that to happen so they would be delayed on the planet for X amount of time. What was it? They kept making up numbers, 17 hours, 25 hours or whatever, so that they could have the delay of them getting back so that they could be stuck there as the xenomorph whole thing kind of happened. And it was all plot elements, but it did seem sort of dumb to the extent of like, maybe they could have thrown in a line or two, this being the director's cut that we watched, of like, this ship wasn't made for landing on a planet.
Mm-hmm. And I think this could also take us down the ethical road of what do you do in dystopic societies when you encounter things that are not good for the masses. Let's say, I'll put it that way. Good for your team of people. So
yeah, you try to steal them for corporate profit, clearly.
It's still all about corporate profit.
I still make the argument, what the hell is a xenomorph going to do that, you know, a nuclear weapon couldn't do, or, you know, any number of guns that the Marines had in the sequel? Like, now granted, I guess the sequel does take place like 60 years after this one, but still, like, modern guns are going to be more than enough. What do you need a xenomorph for? Like, what does it do that, you know, it's not like it's a predator with camouflage and laser weapons.
Well, that, and I mean, with the idea behind this, getting any sort of SOS message, it could have, this alien movie could have been about, you know, I don't know, the Gremlins or something different. They could have encountered some other species.
They were just trying to capture its skeleton so they can like sell it to Nick Cage or something.
That is oddly specific. I want to get into like the creature itself. We encounter the egg. It gets on Kane's face. Understanding again that horror element, at one point, and I know you both talked about seeing the creature too much, where did it transfer from like, I like what's happening, to maybe they've given me too much of the creature? And actually, one of the notes that I made was, I actually expected it to be more violent than it was. Mm-hmm. Every scene where violence was happening was far less gruesome than I thought it was going to be.
To answer your first question, like, it was, they didn't do a good job introducing it. It was too well lit. Like, you saw too much, like, from the get-go. It almost felt like the actor was awkward in the suit. Like, there were some good shots later on, but its introduction was not as tremendous as I remember it being.
I think this is us agreeing with you, Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember reading that like they really had trouble with the suit, and they really tried to fight around the fact that it was a guy in a suit. And I think they did a pretty good job of doing that. And I really liked the whole face hugger idea. I thought that was really cool. I had a little bit of trouble. I mean, I did like the whole like snake skin aspect of the creature molting, kind of like maybe like a crab or something would, or a snake. But it was a little bit difficult to kind of see how the face hugger went from the xenomorph to in that time. And then that one creature behind the cannon thing in the beginning, or whatever it was that they were looking at, like that seemed to be something completely different too. That didn't look.
Oh yeah, that was a different species, right?
Yeah, like I didn't know if that was like another traveling alien that died, or if it was something.
But if you're part of a mining crew, and while yes, you have a scientist on board, do you really let the scientists get away with A, letting the random creature into your ship, B, oh, the creature's off of the face of one of these guys. Oh, he's awake now. Why doesn't he just come eat with all of us and we'll hang out like everything is normal? I feel like everyone should have just been freaking out and even understanding. I guess, was it a surprise for you that Ash was not human?
I'm more surprised that they didn't know. Like,
yeah, you would think going on a business trip like that, you'd understand who was with you.
I mean, they did say, I think it was Dallas kind of said that it was kind of a last minute addition. That like they had stopped at a port or something, and like their previous science officer was off, and then they brought him on. So because I mean, technically Ash also went into the cryo chambers with them. So it was like they were hiding it for some reason,
Right.
which it starts to make me wonder, like, if he actually was at first meant to be an android, or was this literally like a script rewrite at some point? Be like, you know what, it'd be really freaky if he was a replicant. Like, and what
that way he can get away with his decisions is like a very formulaic robot.
Clearly, from a story point of view, they tried to like hide it. They wanted it to be a surprise. And then he went kind of like serial killer for a couple minutes before they beat him up and they had the big reveal of him.
Oh, yeah. Did you know that you can get a rolled up phone book or newspaper or whatever magazine and stick it into someone's mouth, and that would apparently suffocate them? Are you aware of that fact?
There's stuff he knows, I guess.
Allergies. Am I wrong, Bobby? And
right. I mean, he'd have to totally shove it down their throat.
Am I wrong, Bobby, in that I kind of wanted more violence, or at least to have the alien actually, I don't know, really rip someone apart and I see it? Maybe more visceral.
I mean, there was a lot of like going around it. Like there was a lot of hearing it from the other end of it was kind of like a Hitchcock kind of like murdering kind of stuff. You know, it was like hearing it from the other end of a comm, or it goes black and you see blood splatters and stuff. It really wasn't particularly gory.
Like, I wonder though, because if you really look at the design of the xenomorph, and this has always kind of bugged me, his mouth only extends about like 12 inches. So
I mean the mouth in the mouth.
The second mouth, it only goes about 12 inches. It doesn't really look like, it looks like it has metal teeth or something, but it definitely isn't like a lion, right?
Right.
And then like it has its tail, but that's like it. The only other thing it really has is acidic blood. Like I would, if we're going to do this argument, which would I'd rather be in a room with, a xenomorph or a lion? It would probably be a xenomorph. Like, I feel like I have a better chance against it. Like, I just have to stay more than like a few feet away. Like, it doesn't even come off as very fast in this movie.
Does it like grab the people with its hands and then like
and hug them to death?
In their face and then like shoot?
We did see some hug action. There was definitely some hand movements that looked like hug action. We also saw some probing of the bottom kind that again was only hinted at. So maybe I'm seeing things, but I was very uncomfortable.
That's like the nasty version of the old, like, you know, like I got probed by an alien kind of joke.
It probably was that. Damn you, Ridley. You know, Matt, talking about the design, because I think there's that element of the alien is an iconic design because it's been around for so long, and then you get it in all these other properties. But I think, like you said, you probably learn more about it in the later movies that make it like it may be more interesting because, as Bob, you mentioned, or Matt, you said it's not even fast, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem as, I guess, terrifying as it possibly could be.
I feel like definitely like in the later movies, because to me in this movie, it only really works because it's much more, it's tight and confined, right? And in the later movies, because I get the feeling, if I'm not mistaken, this is the only movie where there was only one alien. Mm-hmm. From now on, I feel like every single movie, it's more about like, it's like fighting a swarm of bees. Like it's more the fact that there's like a lot of aliens rather than just a single one.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And if you really think about it, like they can only exist if they can clamp onto somebody's face. So if you have like a steel plated mask, if you're Jason Voorhees, you're probably fine. Oh my God, a Jason Voorhees an alien movie.
Okay. I like where this is going.
Like Jason would probably survive the chest burster, right? To fight the alien afterwards. Like, would the alien call it mama or?
Oh my goodness. I do have to throw in, because I didn't say yet, all I could think about was Spaceballs.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Hello, my honey. Sure, yeah. Hello, my
as soon as it came out, and it was just that, it looked like it was on a stick. Like, it was, and they were just kind of moving it around a little bit. Like, there was no, like, it was so rigid and lacked animation in its, I don't know, chest burster form that it's just like,
I wonder if that's the reason why in Spaceballs you could see like the apparatus
stick behind it as it was moving around. Yeah, that's
and then
great.
its little frog legs as it was dancing.
But see, I was trying to think of, okay, like what kind of stuff has come from this movie that has inspired from this movie that kind of like looking at those movies, you think, oh yeah, or looking at this one, you think, oh yeah, this one's kind of like this other movie that came after it, where I'd really like all those were inspired by this one.
Well, I mean, obviously there'd be, Predator came after, we got Species.
Right.
Which also, because I mean, those ones are clear connections because obviously H.R. Geiger,
Sure.
the designs for those. So like there's a clear like hereditary connection between them. I think that this one definitely, if for nothing else, thematically, with the concept of the ship and being stuck on a ship with an alien or whatever, kind of was bred from this movie. Because I don't know if, you think about movies like The Thing, right? It had clear inspiration, and it was a clear remake of a previous one from like, early like 2030s, which was kind of like the golden era of a lot of these, C and B movies, horror movies during that time that were like the drive-in movies.
Sure.
And then you kind of had this lull. And then you kind of had this time period during the 70s and 80s when you had the slasher movies. These space movies obviously were pretty big. And then another lull until we hit like the 2000s. And then it kind of felt like it was kind of rehashing what these movies did. Yeah, there's a lot of inspiration that I think came out of it. So much so now that I don't know if I could watch any sequels past Aliens and not just think they've already done this before.
Sure.
Were you satisfied with the eventual how the alien dies? They blow up the big ship, ends up on the tiny ship, still gets jettisoned out into space, but not really. Then gets fried by the
I would like to believe that
the spaceship itself.
I would like to believe that the alien's still alive, just spinning in space. Like, to me, like that would actually be an interesting sequel to make now, where literally it's that alien lands on another ship or something, and it just continues its reign of terror, rather than trying to come up with a whole, like, just be like, it's the same alien.
I love the idea. It's the same one, but
that
like
alien
just
can
scorched
hibernate.
stars.
I mean, if you wanted to really go off what was Ash said, it was like the ultimate species or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It being able to survive in space after getting blasted by ion blasters or whatever, like that'd be pretty impressive. If it was like, fuck you, Ridley.
What happened to Jones?
I don't know. He's the mastermind behind the whole thing. If you ask me, he's probably inside of Ash. Did you ever see Jones and Ash in the same scene? That's all I'm saying.
I do love that idea a lot. It was, we have Sigourney and Jones are the only survivors, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And bacteria and whatever else was inside that.
Okay, thanks. now you're the scientist.
Actually,
they get rid of it. Are you happy with the idea that she was just on her way back to Earth in cryo sleep, and that's where the movie finishes?
I wanted it more darker. This is where,
everybody died. He said more dark.
Well, no, I guess just the idea. So like a more modern movie probably had a slightly different take. So like obviously in the sequel, we find out that there's a queen alien and that's what lays the eggs. But it would have been a lot more interesting if we had found out that they can self-replicate and like it had cut and you saw like a little tiny egg on the shelf or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like the camera pans from her sleeping and it cuts to the egg and you're like, oh shit, this thing's going to get to Earth or something.
I do agree with that because I kind of wanted to see what happens next. Bobby, were you happy with that ending?
I'm kind of thinking I would like to have seen something, a little more hint of what was going to happen. I'm the logistics guy. I also wonder what her report is to her corporation that said, hey, you were supposed to.
I love when you get like the detail. Do you want all the businessy stuff?
I do.
You're like, I need to know this report she's filing. Please turn it into my desk by 9 a.m. on your return to the planet.
And she's going to get fired because she like didn't come back with the alien or like anything she mined or really just by not following procedure and letting them on the ship. Yeah, they're going to be
immediate termination.
Right. They're going to be like, wait, so you came back, but you've got nothing else with you and everything.
None of the materials they mined.
I can't remember. Maybe it's just my lack of, maybe it was there and I just didn't see it. So obviously the the corporation behind it is infamous now because it's Wayland Ortani. Did they actually make reference to that at all in this movie? Or is that just something they made up for the sequel?
Did she even have proof that anything happened at all? Or would they just think that she killed everybody? Like,
I think no to your question, Matt. And yes, Bobby, at the end of the day, Ripley was the ultimate killer, and this was all just a fever dream. Feels very Event Horizon all of a sudden. You know, we know this is a quintessential film, obviously very important from this historical standpoint. Bobby, are you recommending Alien for people to watch?
I mean, I do think it's one of those like iconic kind of like, it's always on the top 100 or whatever best movies. And so I do think it's worth a watch to kind of get that history and to kind of see where all these things come from. And yes, there's another Alien movie in the theaters in 2024. So I do think it's kind of like a required watching for some of the stuff that's even happening today.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a obviously big franchise that they are continuing to make it. Matt, how does, you know, in the scope of things, how does this first go around hold up for you?
Not as well as I thought it would. I don't know if it was just the format of watching it or what, but I thought that as much as I enjoyed this movie when I was younger, it didn't hold up from a lot of different directions. Like, I definitely feel like the cinematography was good. You know, this being like a 4K re-release or whatever, like it looked good. Mm-hmm. The alien design looked good. The ship designs, like I love the look of everything. I wish the soundtrack was better in this. And I wish that it had, that heartbeat got on my nerves, man. To be honest, like if somebody were to ask me like, what's your favorite Aliens franchise movie? It's not this one. I think I'm going to say Aliens. Maybe Alien and Aliens is the Coke and Pepsi, the Red Vine and Twizzlers like argument. Like you find out everything you need to know about some person by like which one. And if they say Alien 3 or Resurrections, you just throw them out of the room, right?
I mean, all I'm hearing is we need to go down the path. A little bit of watch it and a little bit of skip in your answer there. But, I think it's one of those where I think you could tell, again, this is a USA movie for me. I think I have way too many of those from growing up and never really seeing the whole thing in full. It's always weird when you watch something and you realize, oh, this has been a source of inspiration for so many different things. Mm-hmm. But I watched those things that took from this and then kind of did it better. So it feels so much like this is more of watching it from that historical standpoint to kind of understand where things started. But I think we should probably go down the path now and watch those sequels so we can have that Twizzlers Red Vines discussion. As a Red Vines person, I'm very interested to see where I land.
See, I knew I liked you. I knew I liked you for a reason. You're a Red Vines guy.
Oh yeah, it's Red Vines all the way.
Oh, thank God, we're friends for a reason. Oh.
I was waiting for Bobby to throw in the Twizzlers.
No, I actually have Red Vines in my house right now. I could probably find them somewhere and show you, give you proof.
So let's Red Vine Aliens watch the other movies and maybe come to that same conclusion. So we sound a little more enthusiastic. Yes, watch it. Just, temper your expectations. As always, thank you for listening. And just know you'll get whatever's coming to you.